Corporate Corpse, and Red Redemption with ranch sauce. Richard spent 3 straight days buried in research on Russian influence operations. The more he dug, the clearer it became. The Kremlin wasn't particularly creative. They didn't invent divisions. They simply found existing ones and poured gasoline on them. Steele's Rage Vault was the perfect vector. It took legitimate worker anger and turned it into an endless, self-propagating rage machine aimed at the billionaire class as a convenient proxy for everything wrong in people's lives. Predictable, Richard muttered. They're just farming what we already grew. But Marcus Steele? That corporate motherfucker was something else. While the Russians played their usual game, Steele kept innovating, and his latest creation was pure evil genius. He called it redemption packages. For a substantial fee, starting at $2.4 million, corporations and CEOs could purchase a beautifully produced redemption arc. Rage Vault would publish glowing articles, polished apology videos, and carefully curated testimonials about how the company had learned from past mistakes and was now committed to stakeholder capitalism. For the right price, they could even be quietly removed from Rage Vault's target lists and corporate trader database. It was the digital version of selling papal indulgences. Pay to have your sins forgiven by the same church that sold the outrage in the first place. Capitalism at its finest. Richard sat in the warehouse, staring at the screen, rubbing his temples. That slick little shit. He's monetizing both sides of the war now. Rage and redemption. The man's a fucking genius. He was still wrecking his brain trying to come up with a proper counter when his phone rang. Effie. Corpse, my friend. Effie sounded unusually cheerful. I've decided to go legit. I'm starting a real business. We're exporting ranch sauce to Europe. Turns out it became insanely popular during the last Soccer World Cup. The Europeans can't get enough of it. We're calling it Hefe's Hidden Valley Revenge. Richard blinked slowly. Ranch sauce? See, big money, low drama. I'm even thinking about doing a commercial with you one day. The angry American and the friendly narco selling ranch dressing together. It would be hilarious. Richard stared at the wall for a long moment. Then something clicked. He started laughing, quietly at first, then louder until the whole warehouse could hear him. Abu Khalid walked over, concerned. Boss, you okay? Richard looked up, eyes bright with a dangerous new idea. Hefe just gave me the answer. He stood up, suddenly energized. Steele sells fake redemption to corporations. We're going to sell real consequences, wrapped in something people actually want. Hope Vault won't just attack the traitors. We're going to build an entire parallel economy that rewards companies that actually follow the 3 points. American companies, American workers. Real shit. He grinned. And maybe we'll even sell some fucking ranch sauce on the side. Richard stood in front of the whiteboard, marker in hand, eyes blazing with a new kind of fire. The crew, old and new, watched him closely. All right, fuckers, Steele is selling fake corporate redemption like some digital pope. We're not going to play defense anymore. We're going on the offensive by building something bigger. He started writing aggressively on the board. We're creating a parallel economy inside Hope Vault. A system that rewards the companies and executives who actually follow the 3-point doctrine and punishes the ones who don't. We turn consumer power, worker power, and investor power into a real economic weapon. The Parallel Economy Framework, Corpse's vision. American-made certification. Companies that publicly commit to the 3 points get a verified Hope Vault badge. This isn't some greenwashing bullshit. It comes with real teeth. Preference in Hope Vault's job marketplace. Priority access to millions of angry but motivated workers who actually want to work for decent companies.
Consumer loyalty campaigns where people are actively encouraged to buy from certified companies. 2. Trader tax. Every company that refuses the 3 points or gets caught screwing American workers gets hit with coordinated boycotts, talent blacklisting, good employees are steered away, shareholder activism campaigns, public corporate trader leaderboard that updates in real time. 3. Hope Vault Marketplace. A full e-commerce and service platform where people can buy products and services only from companies that follow the rules. Ranch sauce from Jeff A's new legit business, front and center. Tools made by American union workers, highlighted. Tech support from companies that don't offshore everything, promoted. 4. Worker ownership pools. Top users and consistent fighters get access to micro-investment pools where they can own fractional shares in the good companies, turning loyal customers into actual owners. 5. Corporate defection rewards. If an executive or entire department wants to leave a toxic company and join a certified one, Hope Vault helps them with legal support, negotiation leverage, and even signing bonuses funded by platform revenue. Richard stepped back from the board and looked at his crew. Steele sells rage and fake forgiveness. We're selling real consequences and real rewards. We're not just fighting the system, we're building a new one that puts American workers first. This same freedom the Ukrainians are fighting for with bullets, we are fighting for with economic warfare. Bandera crossed his arms, nodding slowly with respect. I like this. We hurt the Russians by hurting their puppet, and we build something real at the same time. Abu Khalid grinned. So we're not just anti-corporate anymore, we're pro-American worker. Richard gave them the old dangerous half smile. Exactly. And the best part? Every subscription, every purchase, every certified company that joins us makes us stronger. We're gonna make being a corporate trader fucking expensive, and being a company that actually treats people right very fucking profitable. He raised his monster can. To the parallel economy, boys. Let's make these corporate pricks irrelevant. The warehouse erupted in cheers once again. Even the Ukrainians looked genuinely inspired. The announcement of Hope Vault hit like a bomb. Richard, flanked by Abu Khalid and Bandera, dropped the full charter live from the warehouse. He laid out the 3-point doctrine, the parallel economy plan, and the mission to restore real economic freedom. The stream exploded, hundreds of thousands watching in real time. The reaction was instantaneous and vicious. Russian-adjacent former corporate has-beens flooded the airwaves, calling Hope Vault socialistic treason and fundamentally un-American. Tucker Carlson went on a 15-minute rant about how this was an attack on the free market, then finished by giggling like Satan himself had just tickled his butthole. Megyn Kelly looked straight into the camera and said with a straight face, clearly Corporate Corpse has a micro-penis. Joe Rogan, during a podcast episode, shook his head and said, "Look, attacking Steele and Rage Vault with this Hope Vault thing is like trying to defend against an MMA fighter using Krav Maga. It's just bullshit, bro." Then came the main event. Marcus Steele went live from a sleek, perfectly lit studio, looking polished and smug. "Corporate Corpse had a good run," he said with mock sympathy. "But let's be honest, he's yesterday's news. Even his nickname implies he's already dead and buried. From this day forward, I will be known as the Corporate Liquidator. Real action, real results, not just words from some bitter old man in a basement." Back in the warehouse, Richard watched the clip in silence. He wasn't sure whether to laugh or throw his laptop across the room. Bandera walked up behind him, arms crossed, and let out a deep chuckle. "Boss, this massive coordinated attack, it means we're on the right path. They're scared. Richard exhaled slowly, still staring at Steele's smug face on the screen. Yeah, maybe. Then, without thinking, he hit record on a quick live stream. His voice was pure venom. Hey, corporate liquidator, you fake-ass corporate snake. You're not a liquidator. You're more like the Ayn Rand masturbator, jerking off to your own reflection while sucking up to the same billionaires you pretend to fight. Keep playing revolutionary, you Accenture reject. The real corp's just getting started. He ended the stream, heart still pounding. The clip went viral almost instantly. Richard sat back down, rubbing his face. I need time to think of a proper response, he muttered. This prick is slippery. We hit him too hard and too fast, and he just turns it into content. Abu Khalid nodded. What's the plan, boss? Richard stared at the wall, the fire slowly returning to his eyes. We keep building Hope Vault. We expose the Russian money behind him, and when the time is right, we're going to make the corporate masturbator wish he'd stayed a mid-level consultant. Richard was deep in strategy mode, surrounded by whiteboards, laptops, and empty monster cans. He was sketching out the next major strike against RageVolt when the warehouse door suddenly opened. Everyone froze. In walked Marcus Steele. But not the polished, sharp-jawed corporate liquidator from the videos. This version looked like shit. Disheveled, pale, visibly overweight, with dark circles under his eyes and a defeated slump in his shoulders, he looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. The Ukrainians immediately reached for their weapons. Bandera growled, "Who the fuck is this?" Richard stared for a second, then let out a surprised laugh. Wow. What can I do for you, sugar tits? Steele didn't even try to clap back. He just stood there, looking small. I need your help, he said quietly. The entire room went silent. Steele swallowed hard and continued, The Russians, they're escalating. They're not just pushing narratives anymore. They want full chaos in America. They kept pushing me to radicalize my audience harder, to start calling for real violence. I told them I was done. I've made enough money. I tried to pull back the pro-Russian shit on RageVolt. His voice cracked. They sent me a video. My younger sister. She's tied up. They said if I don't keep the course, she's dead. Steele looked genuinely broken. No performance, no camera-ready smugness, just raw fear. Richard studied him for a long moment, then let out a slow breath. Well, fuck me. He walked over and leaned against a table, crossing his arms. You might be a fake corporate cunt, Steele, but you ain't a traitor, and that's not nothing. Steele looked up, surprised by the lack of immediate hostility. I've spent months wanting to bury you, but I know what it's like when the machine turns on you. The Russians don't fuck around. Once you're useful, you're useful. Once you're not. He didn't finish the sentence. The warehouse was dead quiet. Even the Ukrainians lowered their weapons slightly, watching the scene with cold interest. Richard rubbed his jaw, thinking. So what do you want from me, liquidator? You want protection, redemption? Or are you just here to cry on my shoulder before they put a bullet in yours? Steele looked down at the floor, voice barely above a whisper. I don't know anymore. The tension in the warehouse was thick enough to choke on. Richard paced slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. He kept glancing at Steele, who looked like a man waiting for his own execution. The thought of some terrified girl tied up somewhere because of this mess made Richard's stomach turn. Fuck, he muttered. The Ukrainians were getting visibly restless, Bandera especially. He kept cracking his knuckles and exchanging dark looks with his men. This was the same story they had seen too many times back home. People getting pulled into Russian games, then threatened when they tried to leave. Boss, Bandera said flatly, we've seen this movie. The only way it ends is with payback. Let us handle it our way. Steele looked like he was about to piss himself. Richard raised a hand. Easy, nobody's doing anything stupid yet. Steele, sensing this might be his only chance, suddenly straightened up. The old corporate consultant inside him flickered back to life, desperate but still sharp. Wait, I have an idea, he said quickly, a real one. Not the fake revolutionary bullshit I've been peddling. This could help both of you. Richard narrowed his eyes. Talk fast, sugar tits. Steele swallowed and started speaking like he was giving the pitch of his life. Look, RageVault has millions of users who are already pissed off and looking for targets. The Russians think they control the narrative, but what if we turn the platform against them in the most humiliating way possible? He leaned forward, eyes lighting up with that sleazy consultant brilliance. Operation Red Redemption. We start offering redemption packages to Russian oligarchs and Kremlin-linked companies at massive discounts. We publicly forgive them on the platform with the most ridiculous, over-the-top apology videos imaginable. Think oligarchs crying about Western aggression while wearing I Love Ukraine shirts. We make them look weak, pathetic, and desperate for Western approval. Steele's voice gained momentum. Then, right when they think they're safe, we drop the hammer, full data dumps, evidence of their corruption. Their luxury yachts, their stolen wealth, their connections to the war. We turn their own redemption into the biggest public humiliation in modern history. The users will eat it up. RageVault's numbers go nuclear. HopeVault gets massive free publicity as the real alternative, and the Ukrainians get to watch Russian elites get absolutely clowned on the global stage. He looked at Bandera. And best part? Every time we do this, we expose more Russian financial networks. Real damage, not just memes, actual economic pain for Putin's inner circle. The warehouse was quiet. Richard stared at Steele for a long moment, then slowly started laughing. You absolute fucking whore! That's actually brilliant! I think for the first time in your miserable life, you earned your fucking consulting fee. Bandera cracked a savage grin. I like this plan. We make them bleed money and dignity at the same time. Abu Khalid chuckled. It's so corporate, it just might work. Steele looked relieved for the first time since walking in. I'm done being their puppet. If I have to go down, I'd rather go down swinging with you than crawling for them. Richard looked at his crew, then back at Steele. All right, Liquidator. You've got one shot to prove you're not completely useless. Welcome to the team, temporarily. He pointed a finger at Steele's face. But if this is some kind of trap, I'll let Bandera here introduce you to real Ukrainian hospitality. Steele nodded quickly. Understood. Richard cracked open a fresh monster and raised it. To Red Redemption with ranch sauce, motherfuckers. Let's make some Russian billionaires cry on camera. The planning session was in full swing when Richard suddenly froze. Fuck, he muttered. We're all excited about Red Redemption, and we completely forgot the most important thing. He turned to Steele, who looked exhausted. Your sister. We need to get her back. The room went quiet. Richard looked at Bandera. What do you think? How do we do this? Bandera crossed his arms, his face turning into the cold professional soldier mask. First, we need solid intel. Who has her? Where they're holding her? How many guards? Once we have location and details, then we plan the rescue. No rushing in blind. He nodded at Richard. I can reach out to my Ukrainian intelligence contacts. They're very motivated when it comes to fucking with Russians. But you should also call the general. Collect on old debts. Get everything he has. Richard didn't waste time. He stepped outside and made the call. The general sounded surprised to hear from him. After some back-and-forth arguing, he finally agreed to send over everything his agencies had on the Russian networks connected to Steele. When Richard came back inside, Bandera was already on another call in rapid Ukrainian. He hung up and said grimly, "We'll need more muscle for this kind of op. This isn't some warehouse raid." Richard nodded. "I know who to call." He dialed Jefe. "Jefe, I need a favor. A big one. I need to borrow some of your sicarios. I can't offer you anything in return right now. The only payment will be Ukrainian borscht and Russian tears." There was a pause. Then Jeffy's familiar laugh came through the line. "Corpse, you crazy bastard. You know the Russian mob types always act like they're superior to everybody. I hate that shit. I'll do it for free. Consider my boys on the way." While the intel on Steele's sister was being assembled from multiple sources, Corpse and Steele didn't sit idle. They unleashed absolute hell. Together, they coordinated an ungodly wave of humiliating content against top Russian oligarchs, high-ranking officials, and even the Tsar himself. Deep dives, leaked documents, savage memes, and perfectly timed videos flooded the internet. Steele used his platform's reach, while Corpse brought the raw, unfiltered rage. The public turned fast and violently. Tucker Carlson went on air screaming that the KGB dictator is the biggest threat to Christian civilization, then finished by giggling like there were two Satans tickling his butthole. Megyn Kelly, with a straight face, declared on her show that she had it on the highest authority that Putin had a micropenis. Joe Rogan, during a podcast, shook his head and said Habib is overrated. I'm telling you right now, a beginner Krav Maga practitioner would take him in a street fight, no question. The internet lost its mind. Richard stood in the warehouse, watching the chaos unfold on multiple screens, a tired but satisfied look on his face. Bandera walked up beside him. "Intel is coming together. We should have a location soon." Richard nodded. "Good. Because once we get that girl back, we're gonna make the Russians regret ever fucking with my country." He glanced over at Steele, who was quietly helping coordinate the next wave of leaks. "You're still a corporate cunt," Richard said. "But today, you're our corporate cunt." The rescue was a go. Richard slammed a magazine into a borrowed pistol and stood up. "I'm coming with you." Bandera looked at him, then at the gun in Corpse's hand, and raised an eyebrow. "Joining with what, exactly? Your 2.5 degrees?" The entire room went quiet. Richard slowly turned and gave Bandera the look. The same look he used to give middle managers who tried to fuck him over in performance reviews. The look that had survived 25 years of corporate hell. Bandera immediately raised both hands. "Never mind, you're in." Steele, still looking like a scared golden retriever, stepped forward. "I'm coming too. It's my sister." Bandera sighed. "Great. We have the old man with anger issues, the corporate consultant, and a team of Ukrainians. This is going to be cinematic. If this shit show gets a movie, I want to be played by Leo DiCaprio." The rescue. 2:47 a.m. Abandoned warehouse outside Warsaw. The team moved like shadows. The Ukrainians were surgical. Steele was nervous but determined. And Richard was something else entirely. They breached the outer perimeter quietly, but when they reached the main hallway, 2 heavily armed Russian guards stepped out. Before Bandera could raise his rifle, Richard stepped forward like he was walking into a Tuesday morning stand-up. "Excuse me, gentlemen," he said in perfect corporate calm. "Can I speak to your manager?" "We have a scheduled 3 a.m. performance review for subject 47B. The guards blinked, confused. Richard kept going, voice dripping with HR energy. "Look, I understand you're doing your best, but we've had multiple complaints about your leadership style. There's been talk of toxic masculinity and failure to meet quarterly kidnapping KPIs. I'm going to need you to fill out a 360 review form right now. One guard raised his gun. Who the fuck?
Who the fuck? Richard snapped, channeling every toxic manager he'd ever had. I'm sorry, did I stutter? This is a mandatory all-hands meeting. Put the weapons down or I'll write you up for insubordination.
The sheer audacity and corporate tone confused the guards for 2 critical seconds. That was all Bandera and his team needed. The Ukrainians dropped both guards silently. Bandera stared at Richard in disbelief. What the actual fuck was that? 25 years of surviving performance reviews, Richard said, reloading. You learn how to weaponize bureaucracy. They pushed deeper. When they reached the room holding Steele's sister, 3 more guards were waiting. This time, Richard went full cubicle psycho. He walked straight in, hands up, and started clapping slowly. Great job, team! Really, outstanding work on the hostage situation. However, going forward, we're going to need to implement a more agile workflow. Also, your branding is shit. Scary Russian kidnappers doesn't test well with focus groups. While the guards were trying to process the unhinged American, Steele's sister, who had clearly inherited some balls, kicked one guard in the nuts. Chaos erupted. In the end, the rescue was an embarrassing success for the Russians. The Ukrainians handled the real violence, but Corps's distraction tactics somehow worked twice. As they extracted the girl, Richard looked at one of the tied-up guards and said, By the way, you're being let go. Effective immediately, HR will send you an email. Back at the warehouse, 5:12 a.m. Steele hugged his sister tightly. She was shaken, but safe. Bandera walked up to Richard, shaking his head in disbelief. I've fought Russians for years. I've never seen anyone confuse them into submission before. Richard shrugged, exhausted but smiling. Corporate America prepares you for anything. He looked at Steele. You still a corporate cunt? Steele, holding his sister, nodded. Yeah, but I'm your corporate cunt now. Richard laughed and raised a fresh monster. To the weirdest fucking rescue team in history. The warehouse cheered. Even Bandera cracked a rare, genuine smile.